And our last presenter before our lunch break, BitTorrent operates within an ecosystem of software, devices, and protocols that move between 15 and 30% of the world's internet traffic on a daily basis, with more than 170 million monthly users worldwide. Almost a decade ago, the company was backed by Excel Partners and Dahl Capital Management, raising $20 million to become the world's leading open-source file-sharing protocol. Here to present, please welcome President and CEO of BitTorrent, Eric KLINKER.
Hello. It's great to be with you here in this wonderful city. And, you know, it's also great to talk about one of the, I think, more relevant topics that we all face as a technology industry, and it's this notion of the cloud. It's hard to imagine, if you actually sit back and think about it, that this term hasn't really been with us all that long. In fact, if you think about you know, when this came into our vernacular, it's only been the last 4 or 5 years or so. And in such a short period of time, there's really no topic that has more thoroughly inserted itself into the expectations of what is required from the internet. There is nothing I do on the internet today that isn't made possible by the cloud. And you might even argue that we are incredibly dependent on this notion of the cloud to do almost anything we want to do on the internet. Now, of course, it wasn't always this way, and perhaps the more relevant question is it going to continue to be this way, or is there a different way to think about the cloud? Now, one of the advantages of being BitTorrent, or maybe you could say it's a disadvantage, is that by the nature of the brand, public convention demands that I be provocative, and this will probably be no exception. So please bear with me. I want to help you think about the cloud potentially in a different way, and that may require our unique perspective on things. Because we do think about technology, we do think about the cloud a little bit differently. It isn't something that's been with us that long, but if you think about the original or the origins of the internet, for those that can you know, be as old as I am and go back that far, when you would draw the internet back in this day, you would tend to draw it on the whiteboard or the blackboard as a cloud. And perhaps the etymology of these cloud services it derives itself from that term. So think of that as cloud classic. It was the internet. And over time, it became something less. It became these things that lived in the internet, or these services, or these applications. And for the purposes of this talk, I want to use the cloud very generally. I want to take a liberal definition of it to be really any centralized thing or service that lives in the cloud. This could be Google, it could be Facebook, it could be Netflix. For my definition, these are as applicable as EC2 or Salesforce or you know, something rendered as a service, if you will. But you know, in the original internet that I just brought you back to, the thing that we would draw on the whiteboard or the blackboard, that was the internet as an infant. And it was a vision that was special, I think, because back then there weren't. It was a public good. There were no corporations on the internet. It was people at the edge of the network connecting to other people, and that's where the internet started. And along the way, I think we have moved on from that vision to perhaps an internet that is something more of an unruly adolescent. It is a thing that is becoming difficult to control, and it has a mind of its own in a way. So if we think about the cloud, and if we think about how we want to re-envision that cloud, what are some challenges that we face? And I think this is one of them. If you look at the nature of content in the cloud, especially something like Netflix or my favorite streaming service, these are services that have some challenges in front of them. And if you don't believe me, let's do a little thought exercise together. If you were to consider the average American, as you all know, Americans like to watch a lot of television, and it is this very market opportunity that these services are trying to capture and then expand. So if you took the average American, even with the success of all these services, this person still watches over something like 35 hours of television every week. It's a mixture of high definition and standard definition. But if you were to try to digitize that content, it would be about 220 gigabytes per person per month. Now, so Netflix's job is to convert all of that viewership to streaming, and simple arithmetic says that if you multiply that amount of consumption by, say, 300 million Americans, you have to deliver something like 66 exabytes, EB, of data each month. Think about that. 66 exabytes. That's, just to try to put that number into perspective, that's almost as much data as the NSA collects on that same average American each month. So it's an astoundingly large number, and although exabyte isn't yet in our vernacular to the same extent that maybe gigabyte is, if we keep going on this path, exabyte will be the new gigabyte before we know it. So content has a scaling problem, and it's not going to get better. In fact, Moore's law dictates that it's going to get worse, because the devices that I'm connecting to the edge of the network are increasing in their power and their capability on an exponential basis. My iPhone is quite a bit more powerful than the iPhone I had just 2 years ago. And the challenge is that the underlying network itself, this is built with technologies like backhoes and union labor. Or the cloud is kept cold by technologies like electricity. And the last time I checked, electricity isn't getting exponentially cheaper every 18 months. So we have a challenge, we have a problem. Content's getting rich at the edge of the network itself strains to deliver that. So that means that there will always be an increasing premium on efficiency. And efficiency is definitely one of the things that we could get better at as an industry. Because at the end of the day, this is the architecture that we're saddled with. It is the same architecture that Netflix uses, or YouTube uses, or anybody uses to deliver content. And it's stream by stream by stream, usually delivered in the peak hours of the evening all at once. And this is, unfortunately, the state of the art for the cloud. This is as good as it gets using today's technology. So efficiency is one problem that I think we need to address. You know, what are some other challenges that the cloud faces? Well, you know, of course, anytime you centralize a large amount of information, I mean, what could go wrong? I mean, what could go wrong if we were to organize all of the world's information and all of your information and all of my information into the hands of just a very few, very large public cloud companies? I mean, what on earth could happen? Any ideas? Now, in hindsight, I suppose it's glaringly obvious how this could go wrong. Anybody could have seen it coming. But whether you are an iPhone-toting celebrity who is just now being exposed to these cloud weaknesses, or you're instead a hardened IT professional that's been battling this for as long as the cloud has been a term, these perceptions are becoming increasingly mainstream, and they're important to grapple with. We have to get them right. So how could we begin to address some of these problems? Well, you know, however we choose to address them, there are at least a few known examples that we can go back to. Take the communications network that was dominant before the internet. In the 50s and 60s, the phone network, at least in the United States, was centralized under the control of AT&T. And in that network, over the course of 80 or 90 years, there was no innovation. There was nothing I could do on that network that AT&T didn't control. And the obvious solution to that was to take a decentralized approach, which the internet did. And because of that key decision, that simple exercise in decentralizing, we have an amazing industry here and everywhere on the internet. It's astounding what has flourished with just that simple idea that we could push power to the edge of the network and minimize the degree of control that is exerted at the core of the network. And that, of course, is many of the same principles that BitTorrent uses today, whether we are using, decentralization is very much at the core of everything we do. We want to push as much capacity to the edge of the network. Any device can contribute to a cloud application using BitTorrent. And if you are an IT professional, for example, think about all of the hard assets that you have lying fallow in your enterprise. These can be used more reliably than you might otherwise imagine. BitTorrent or technologies like ours can turn technologies that are unreliable into something that collectively is reliable. And this vision of the cloud can go on, such that when you think about the cloud, I'd like you to try to imagine something bigger than the vision you have today. Imagine a cloud that is powered by the people of the internet. Imagine a cloud that is as distributed, as powerful, as efficient, and as resilient as the very internet itself. This is what the cloud can become. Thank you.